Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Welcome to Main Street Alliance COVID Relief for Small Business and the American Rescue Plan webinar. Main Street Alliance is a network of value-based small business owners who want their businesses to do better and know that their businesses do better when their community and their workers are better. So here at MSA, we provide them with a way to impact public policy debates at the federal, state, and sometimes local levels. I am Dominique Sanders, Main Street Alliance's Field Director, and today I am joined by Didier Tron, MSA's Governmental Affairs Director, and Cynthia Ward-Wickstrom, our Program Director. And you will be hearing from the three of us throughout this webinar today. So today's agenda and outcomes, we'll be presenting an overview of the relief available to small businesses and the $1.9 billion American Rescue Package that was signed by President Biden on March 11th. Our goal for this webinar is to be able to provide a quick overview of major new programs and improvements included in this bill. We will also share information about where to get information from MSA. We are planning additional webinars tailored to specific parts of the bill and audiences. And we will also share information about where you can get the individualized technical assistance you may need for your small business. And we will be sharing these slides and the recording to this webinar out to everyone who has attended after the webinar is over. So you can expect that in your inboxes soon. While there are big improvements in this bill, COVID has definitely shown big gaps that exist in small business supports, especially for less banked businesses and communities. We'll also go over how you can get involved in our campaign to shift the focus from relief to recovery. I am sure once we present all of this information that Didier and Cynthia has created for us, you will have lots of questions. And so please add throughout this webinar to the Q&A tab, and we will have lots of time to make sure those questions are addressed and answered. And so let's get started. I have a lot of information to cover. I want to quickly go over some of the major programs in the American Rescue Plan for small business. The largest new small business programs that we included in the American Rescue Plan are grants to those industries that have been most severely impacted. There are also a set of improvements to existing small business programs, including some like the ERC and FICRA that were less publicized, but very important for small businesses to know about. The plan also includes some major new expenditures to strengthen the small business infrastructure, especially access to credit for every small business. But before we dive into the programs, want to say a note about small business advocacy. So, as you all know too well, many of the initial programs for small business did not work for small business and for us, and it was bigger businesses who got the bulk of the support, especially in the first round. Small businesses across the country spoke up about the problems. MSA was very active in making sure our members were able to talk directly to elected officials about the problems and what needed to be fixed. It is through your stories and our joint advocacy that many of these changes have been made this time around. And so I want to make sure we definitely applaud all of the Main Street Alliance members and the small business owners out there that helped to make this happen. And through the tireless work of restaurants, venues, and childcare centers, we have finally made in way for major grants for these hard hit industries. The programs are better, but much more is needed. At the end, what else we're bringing as priorities at the federal and state level, and how you can weigh in on priorities and how to keep improving these solutions. So I just want to take a moment and applaud MSA and all the members, pat yourselves on the back. If you can't reach up there, a simple applaud is Okay. And thank you all for the support and the continued success, and small businesses for the success we were able to accomplish all these things. So now let's dive into the programs from the American Rescue Plan, and I am going to pass it over to Didier.
Thanks, Dominique. And just want to echo Dominique's thanks both for joining us today and learning about what's in the American Rescue Plan, and of course for your ongoing advocacy in support of small businesses around the country. So as Dominique said, the American Rescue Plan reflects a notable shift to grants as opposed to loans in this round to hard-hit industries, in particular food and beverage establishments, childcare centers, and live venues. The first major grant program that is included in the rescue plan is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which will provide $28.6 billion through a new grant program at the Small Business Administration. This grant program was really envisioned by the Bipartisan Restaurants Act. And for those of you that have been advocating for the Restaurants Act, you'll notice that the amount of this grant program is only about a quarter of the amount that is called for in the Restaurants Act, which is why it will be important to continue to advocate for both replenishing this new Restaurant Revitalization Fund and also passing the Restaurants Act to ensure sufficient funding beyond this round. As far as the details of the RRF, it allows for up to $10 million in grant funding per entity, with a maximum of $5 million per location, up to 20 locations. An eligible business may receive a tax-free federal grant equal to the amount of its pandemic-related revenue loss, which is calculated by subtracting the 2020 gross receipts from the 2019 gross receipts. Grants can be used for a variety of expenses, including payroll, mortgage, rent, utility, supplies, food and beverage expenses, paid sick leave, and operational expenses. And pandemic-related revenue losses for business are reduced by any amounts received from PPP first draw and second draw loans in 2020 and or 2021. But this grant can be used alongside PPP loans, EIDL loans, and the employee retention credit. You'll remember that the previous COVID relief bill that was passed just in December created the Shuttered Venues grant program, which we will get to a little bit later. So SBA intends to use the same platform for launching the Restaurant Revitalization Fund to speed up access to these funds. Because it's taken SBA a while to get the venues program off the ground, the hope and expectation is that the similarity of the construct of this revitalization fund will make it easier and quicker to launch. In the revitalization fund, there's also a $5 billion set aside for businesses with less than $500,000 in 2019 annual revenue. That will be available for the first 2 months following the launch of the program. Moreover, in the first 3 weeks of the launch, SBA will be prioritizing grants to women-owned, veteran-owned, or socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. And we will drop in the chat some links from our friends at the Independent Restaurant Coalition that will help you prepare and get ready to apply for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which, knock on wood, is expected to be sometime in May. The next industry that has been extremely hard hit by COVID is the childcare industry. So the American Rescue Plan includes a total of $39 billion in new funding for childcare centers. That is broken up into an additional $15 billion in funding through the Child Care and Development Block Grant, or CCDBG, That is on top of the $10 billion that was included in the December relief bill to support families and providers. And then the rescue plan creates a new stabilization fund that provides $24 billion to eligible childcare providers, including those who haven't previously received funding through CCDBG. This stabilization fund will be administered by state agencies and can support providers who are currently operating or closed for COVID-related reasons. The funds cover a range of expenses again, such as personnel costs, rent, facility maintenance improvements, PPE, and COVID-related supplies. And improvements that have been made to other small business programs, such as PPP, EIDL Advance, and ERC, are now complementary and should be more easily accessed. This is especially important since family centers were left out of the PPP last year. And lastly, before I turn it over to Cynthia, I mentioned the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. It is very close to being launched. I am hearing that they are looking to launch it in early April. However, the good news is that the rescue plan includes an additional $1.25 billion for this grant program, including a set aside for technical assistance to help businesses apply for these grants. And very importantly, the rescue plan includes a critical fix that allows venues to access a PPP loan as well as a Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. The PPP loan amount will just be deducted from the grant amount. And we will also drop in the chat a link to the updated FAQs from SBA on the Shuttered Venues program. And now I will turn it over to Cynthia to talk about extended and improved programs in the rescue plan.
Thanks, Didier, and thanks everyone for joining today. Yes, there's in addition to these new grant programs, quite a few of the existing programs have been strengthened. What we've seen is that as members of Congress saw how long the recovery was going to take, and as they saw who was sort of falling through the cracks, have made significant improvements. We saw many of these in the HR 133 bill that passed in December, and there's many more in this program. And today we're going to cover the employee retention credit, Families First, EIDL, and some important improvements in healthcare. The good news about this is that the programs continue to get better and better. The not so good news is that they've become much more complicated. Many of them have different timetables, different application processes for different ones. So there's a lot in these programs. They're very detailed. Again, we're going to just do a sort of a broad overview of them and the information we think is going to be most helpful for you at this point in time. And we're included the end where you can look for more information. Alrighty, so employee retention credit. This was a program that many people still don't know about. And any business who has employees should listen really carefully because it just keeps getting better and better. This was in one of the original CARES bills, but when it was first introduced, you had to pick if you want to do this or PPP. And now the programs are completely complementary. And that has been fixed retroactively. So if you are an eligible business, you can now claim up to $10,000 per employee per year retroactively for 2020, and up to $7,000 per quarter per employee is available for 2021. So it's very important to find out if you're eligible, it's money that is sitting there. So here's the basic information. If you're a business with under 500 employees whose gross receipts dropped by 20% or more compared to the same quarter in 2019, you're eligible for a credit of 70% of qualified wages up to $10,000 per employee per quarter. So it's $10,000, but 70% of it, so it's $7,000. And this most recent version just got extended through the end of 2021. So all 4 quarters are covered. Also newly added, which we are super excited about, is that we have been flagging for members of Congress that a lot of the programs were only all looked at what happened between 2020 and 2019. So for new businesses that started in 2020, they were effectively cut out. The Employee Retention Credit just added a program, a component that's for businesses that opened after February 15th, 2020. So as long as you have gross receipts under $1 million, you may be eligible for a credit of up to $50,000 per calendar quarter. So major new program that was due to everyone's advocacy. The program itself is pretty simple to apply for. It's a form that you send in to IRS. But because of, for anyone who is also doing PPP, there's also, it's challenging to figure out what you count for what. So it is a place that we definitely recommend that you think about, have, a financial advisor, or talking with, if you have a payroll company, talking with your payroll company, because this is very important and may be very beneficial to businesses when they most need it. So that's the Employee Retention Credit. Next is the Families First Paid Leave Program. This was one of the very first bills that passed in 2020. The original bill mandated that certain businesses provide paid sick and childcare leave to their employees. This mandate expired at the end of 2020. But the tax credits continued, and it's been people have been very confused. But what exists now is the program has been extended through September 30th, and starting on March 31st, the allocations for 2 weeks of paid sick leave and an additional 12 weeks of family leave are now available. Even if you use those, you had an employee who used those last year, they're now freshly re-upped for the through the year. And also important to note that this self-employed are also eligible for these credits. So looking at what you can now take this leave for. So the other big improvement was that they've increased the circumstances under which employees can take leave and be reimbursed, and especially the 12 weeks of leave have been expanded dramatically. So for both of those, if you're an eligible business, COVID-related credits can cover leaves taken when employees have coronavirus symptoms and need to seek a medical diagnosis, need to wait for results. This is a new one, obtaining or recovering from a vaccine, are subject to a quarantine by the government, or it's been recommended by a provider, and or you're caring for a child whose school or childcare is unavailable. And the reimbursement is up to $511 per day for an employee's sick leave day, or $200 a day, up to $200 a day for a caregiving day. And the family leave, those 12 weeks, are also at that $200 a day cap. So our employees who did find out about this and have been using it have said that it has been a critical component of their COVID relief. It's made it, a no-brainer to be able to, support your employees to take the time they need to recover at home, even if it's a precautionary, and also ensure that, other employees and customers are kept safe. So another really important program to know about, and it's also a simple form to fill out that you apply for IRS that you can get as soon as you pay the wages. Third program we want to mention is EIDL. There have been improvements to this. Quick reminder, there was 2 parts to the EIDL program. One of them was a loan that you could get, but there was also this advance, $10,000 advance grant. Many people did not get the full $10,000. So the bill that passed in December said for people who are really struggling, and they focused on folks in small businesses in low-income areas who had suffered a loss, that they could be eligible for a special targeted EIDL advance. This bill includes an additional $15 billion for that EIDL advance program, and it includes a new special program that's a $5 billion that will include $5,000 supplemental grants for anyone who suffered a loss of 50% or more, is located in a low-income census tract and has 10 employees or fewer. The way this original program worked was that SBA just reached out to people and just sent checks. We're not quite certain if that's going to be how they will do this second program. We think it probably will be, but we'll keep monitoring SBA and share information when we have it. The fourth area that we want to flag for people is around healthcare. A big concern for our members during COVID was ensuring that their employees, if they had to lay them off or they had to be on leave, were able to maintain their health coverage. This bill has a couple of new programs that will help significantly with this. The first one is that subsidies for the ACA marketplace have been dramatically increased for the next 2 years. So it's investing $35 billion to ensure that the subsidies are significantly improved. And I've seen some numbers that, for certain people at certain income levels, it's going to go from like, $1,200 down to $200. I mean, it's a large amount that they're going to drop down. So they both improve the subsidies to make it more affordable. And they're also, subsidies had been capped. If you were making more than 400% of poverty, you could no longer receive a subsidy. That's been taken off. And there's now subsidies available. And they cap how much someone can spend on their healthcare to 8.5% of income. So 2 very significant improvements to the marketplace. A second new program is that they're also going to fully subsidize COBRA for 6 months for employees who have been laid off or subject to reduced hours. So, when someone's laid off and they're on COBRA, oftentimes they pick it up, but now the federal government is going to pick up that amount, providing a very important support to ensure people can maintain their health insurance. And now I'm going to pass it back to Didier, who's going to cover our third area, access to capital.
Thanks, Cynthia. So included in the American Rescue Plan are some new important supports for small business regarding access to capital, which reflect many of your concerns, both since the passage of the CARES Act a year ago and frankly long before, which I will go over. As we saw over the past year, systemic racial and equity barriers around access to capital and credit continue to plague both COVID relief programs and the broader financial system. Fortunately, the American Rescue Plan attempts to address some of these issues by including more than $350 billion in state and local fiscal relief, which can be used for grants to small businesses. As you recall, not a single penny of state and local aid was included in the December relief bill because Republican leadership insisted that it be paired with a liability shield for corporations. So getting this amount of funding into the rescue plan is a big deal. The bill also provides $175 million in new assistance to fund community organizations, SBA resource partners, and community banks with experience working in underserved communities to act as community navigators, as this new pilot program is being called, to help connect small businesses to critical COVID resources. And lastly, the rescue plan invests $10 billion into the Small Business Opportunity Fund, which will help states leverage private capital and support small businesses with new low interest loans. For those of you who are familiar with the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI, this is a reauthorization of that program, which was created under the Obama administration following the last economic recession. And then I wanted to include a quick update on the Paycheck Protection Program. The rescue plan actually includes fairly minor changes to the PPP. It did make certain nonprofits and digital news organizations eligible for PPP funding, and added another $7 billion to the PPP, but mostly wanted to talk about where things are right now with the PPP and some changes that were made independent of Congress by the Biden-Harris administration. So if you don't know, the current round of PPP is set to expire at the end of this month, which is only 2 weeks away. However, just yesterday, the House did pass bipartisan legislation to delay the deadline until the end of May, and also gives SBA until the end of June to complete processing of loan applications. Because of how quickly the House passed this bill, there is optimism that the bill will get approved by the Senate soon, in which case we could see a 2-month extension of the PPP into May. So stay tuned for that. And as I mentioned, separate and apart from the American Rescue Plan, we alerted you a few weeks ago to fixes that the administration made to the PPP to expand access and relief. The first was to allow sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals to receive more support by revising the PPP's funding formula for these applicants, basically replacing the old formula, which was based on net profit with gross income. And that change would allow sole proprietors to access significantly more relief through the PPP. Unfortunately, this change was not made retroactive for borrowers who had already applied for the PPP. So Main Street Alliance is actively urging Congress to correct this, especially before the current round of PPP closes. The second change that was made by the administration is enabling access to the PPP for small business owners with prior non-fraud felony convictions. A third was eliminating student loan debt delinquency as a disqualifier to the PPP. And lastly, ensuring access for non-citizen small business owners with ITINs, which is the individual taxpayer identification number, who don't have social security numbers, to also be able to apply for the PPP. So we wanted to highlight for you here as we start to wrap up the content portion of the presentation, some additional resources where hopefully you can get the one-on-one assistance that you might need to explore these programs and others in more depth. As we've said at the top and throughout the course of this presentation, we would encourage you to consult with technical advisors and experts as new rules and new guidance is made available for these programs. On this list here, SCORE, SBA, and MBDA, which is the Minority Business Development Agency at Commerce, all have funding to provide technical assistance to small business on COVID relief. Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFIs, are the place for both information about PPP funding and technical assistance. As always, Main Street Alliance will be updating our website, which will include some short one-pagers on each of the available programs. As Dominique said, we're also planning several additional focused webinars where we hope to go deeper and bring along specific constituencies who are interested in individual programs. We're planning to do one on the employee retention credit, one on the Families First FICRA paid leave program, and another one for sole entrepreneurs and micro businesses. And we will, of course, be sure to send out information to our list about all of these. And with that, I will turn it back over to Dominique.
Thanks so much, DA and Cynthia, for all that information. We are going to move into the question portion in a second. So again, if you have any questions for Cynthia or Didier, please drop it in the Q&A tab, which is located at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. Before we get there, more important information is taking action. At the beginning of the call, I applauded everyone, Main Street Alliance members, for really stepping up and sharing your stories to be able to get this relief package, rescue package passed. But there is still more work to do. And so you can, we dropped in the chat a link that you can click on, and it automatically will produce a tweet for you, and you feel free to edit the message in the tweet if you need to, or if you want to just go ahead and tweet at Senate Dems, thanking them for their support in the American Rescue Plan and urging them to still act now, and how important emergency paid leave is and how it's critical to small business relief, and use the hashtags paid leave for all to build back better, as well as tweet at Main Street Alliance. Please click on the chat and that will be available for you. Some other actions that you can take is write an email to your member of Congress. If Twitter isn't your thing, and email is, it's always great to email your member of Congress, also thanking them for their support in the ARP and urging them to help small business move from relief and to the road to recovery. Share your story with us, get involved with the local MSA chapter. We have added in the chat also how you can get involved, how you can share your story, how you can find out the other small businesses that are a part of your local MSA network. We have a national MSA network of small business owners and local levels, and very active state chapters and state networks across the country. And so I really hope to see you all at your local MSA network and involved, and also share information and invite other small businesses to join the conversation. Like I mentioned earlier, this recording will be sent out. So feel free to forward it along so that way other small businesses can get this information, and we will have upcoming webinars. And so those are some of the ways that you can get involved with us. There is also, follow us on social media, Twitter at Main Street Tweets, Facebook Main Street Alliance Action Fund, Instagram Main Street Alliance _ like, follow, comment, share, and repost. So that way you can stay up to date with when we schedule our future webinars and when we have like more information to roll out, and you want to be the first to know, follow us on social media. So I want to talk a little bit about what we hope to do in the future, and our current work of what we hope to accomplish in 2021 as you're thinking about getting involved with Main Street Alliance, and all the good work that we do here. We have several photos on the screen of our small business owners from across the country really getting involved and taking action, meeting with their members of Congress, etc. And we do so much more. And so MSA currently is committed to protecting and rebuilding rebuilding businesses devastated by COVID, focusing on hardest hit businesses and those excluded from earlier relief programs, as stated before. Also addressing capital, credit, and business development needs of the country's small businesses. We are committed to leveling the playing field for small businesses by supporting a safety net for small businesses and their employees, as well as reining in monopolies and reversing corporation concentration. So we have a wide agenda to tackle, and we are committed to the work here at Main Street Alliance and committed to making sure that small businesses not only get the relief, but also a plan for the road to recovery. And so we are here for you all, and we hope that you engage in the conversation. So with that, we will open it up to questions from the Q&A.
Sarah, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Thank you. I was struggling with my mute button per usual. Thank you all. Thanks Dominique, Cynthia, and Didier for giving a great overview of the new and updated programs. Again, as Dominique mentioned, you can start to put your questions in the chat and we'll get through as many as possible. As we mentioned throughout the program, this bill is only 5 days old, and a lot of these programs, the details of which have not come out even for us. And so we'll try and get as detailed as we can, but many, if we can't, we're going to make sure that we hold your questions and make sure that we get them answered over email or get you connected to the right resource. The first question comes, some of the programs we talked about included the childcare industry, the restaurants industry, shuttered venues. A few people have asked, what about retail? And if they have anything in specific or whether they're covered under other programs.
So we have been working hard to get grants that would be generally available grants. And we will continue to work hard for that. That is the one that I would direct towards that's available in this package is what Didier shared in terms of the state and federal grants, having the state and local grants. If there's additional funding, those programs often ended up being more flexible and open to smaller businesses. But there is not one for, basically it was that the restaurant industry, venues, and childcare centers did very focused campaigns for targeted supports. And we do believe there needs to be more grants. We'll keep working on it. We'll be working at the state level as well.
Thanks, Cynthia. Similarly, another industry, if you don't mind speaking a little bit more into, is the nonprofits. I know there was a bit of update around nonprofits, if you can speak to how that impacts across the various different programs.
Yep. Well, certainly I saw some specific questions about the employment retention credit. Those are absolutely eligible for this, for that program, and the same for the Families First program. So most of the programs are also open for nonprofits.
Just to go over again, a few questions around the Families First paid leave program. If you can just reiterate some of those deadlines and extensions. It looks like the IRS form might be still out of date. So maybe just giving a clarification of when we think that might change and what to do in the meantime.
Yeah. So the IRS and SBA have been really slow to update their materials, and it's incredibly frustrating. They've had a lot to do. They're understaffed, yada yada, and we've been telling people about programs they're eligible for, and they still don't see them up on the site. And many of them have this little banner that now says, "Please note, the information on this site does not reflect HR 133 that passed in December." So we're still waiting for the December pieces to move their way through, and we haven't even started to see this bills move their way through. So we're providing you with information that is correct, includes links to where you can see what the program is. And we are working hard with our members of Congress to try and really expedite getting good information out, because it really isn't fair to all of you to have these programs and not to have updated information on the website. It makes it ever more confusing.
And speaking of other layers of updated or out of date information, I think with the end of the PPP program coming March 31st, a lot of specific financial lenders are shutting down their personal bank programs early in order to be able to get to that deadline. If your bank, there's a few questions around people's particular lending group shutting down before the 31st deadline. If that's the case, do you have any suggestions about what people can do or what the likelihood of extension would look like?
Didier, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, we would recommend that you first see what can be done with your existing lender. And if they're not willing to move forward based on the current deadline, then we would suggest trying to reach out to SBA. It's tricky to forecast what Congress will do. But as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the House did move very quickly to pass through its chamber a 2-month extension of the PPP deadline bodes well for fairly quick action by the Senate. And it's my understanding that the Biden-Harris administration, if Congress does proceed with approving this deadline, will effectuate the extension if Congress can get the bill to the president's desk. So guardedly optimistic that it will get extended over the next 2 weeks. Of course, this doesn't help your situation if your lender is not being agreeable, in which case, again, would recommend if there is a field office at SBA that you can reach out to. Given the short amount of time, it'll be hard to start a new loan process with a new lender. Perhaps SBA can be helpful.
Thanks, Didier. And that dovetails really nicely into questions around the Community Navigators program. Can you speak a little bit more about what that specific technical assistance will look like? And do you know if SBA will be providing training to those navigators? Who are they connected to? And how can we see that coming online?
So this is a brand new program. As I mentioned, it's a pilot that's been authorized through the end of 2025. So as far as what we know now, the idea is to provide grants to partners in communities that are very familiar with those communities and can provide very quick, if not immediate, access for small business owners who have had difficulty finding information or navigating the system to get relief, to connect them. And so current SBA resource partners, I think will be certainly considered, but more importantly, I think partners who are able to reach communities with language deficiencies will be another potential resource for this Community Navigator program.
Thanks, Didier. If someone could maybe give a little bit more clarification around the new EIDL grant programs, is the supplemental 5,000 grant in addition to the second round EIDL grant that was supposed to bring people back up to $10,000, or is it in replacement of?
It is in addition to the people who received the 10,000, the people who qualified and received the level up to the 10,000 amount.
And it, just to add to what Cynthia said, it's got some more stringent requirements as far as the size of the business, the revenue impact of COVID, what community the business is in. So it's even more targeted, I would say, than the last round of EIDL advance grants.
I've gotten a few questions around how the Restaurants Grants Program works with the PPP and also various rounds of the PPP. I know that particularly for restaurants, the way that payroll was calculated, changed from 2.5 times payroll to 3.5 times payroll. Other people have gone for the restaurants grants, but have also gone for PPP. If you have any explanation of how those are interacting and if people can apply for second rounds, even if they waited to the PPP program, what some of those connections look like.
Again, it's my understanding that they made the grant program as flexible as possible for affected restaurants that have potentially already accessed other forms of relief, whether that be PPP, EIDL, employee retention credit, etc. We included a couple of links that may provide some more detail in terms of your specific situation or context. But they tried to make it as compatible with other relief programs as possible, recognizing again that this has been an extremely hard-hit industry.
A few questions around the EIDL program. If people were denied in the first round, can they reapply? Some questions around timing around the grants. If there's any more details on how that works, the EIDL is separate from the PPP, where the PPP you go through a financial lender. How do you apply directly for the EIDL if not through a financial lender?
So the EIDL loans are still available. The EIDL grants, the advanced 10,000, have entirely been a targeted program. Those are not, and they were limited to people who had applied before and then not gotten the full amount. So they have not reopened the advance grants to new people who did not apply before. And we've heard some things that it seems pretty good about people getting them. If anyone, has a circumstance where they applied for the EIDL advance before and have not gotten and live in a low income area and have been, their income is down, would love to hear from you about, hear what happened and to see if there's, because we don't know entirely if they've, how well they've been able to reach out to everybody who should be qualifying for this program. So if you think you might, let us know, and we would love to follow up with you.
A question around the ACA subsidies and whether those apply for new plans in 2021 or retroactively. A little bit more detail would be great.
It appears that they're going to go into effect as of April 1st. And so I just read that if you're starting a new plan, it's probably good to start one that's a short-term plan and then be able to start one on April 1st that will then include the new subsidy levels.
Thanks. A few questions around the Families First program again. If employees have used, their 2 weeks of dedicated sick pay for childcare, or if they need it then for themselves, are they able to do that? How do the 2 weeks interplay with the 12 weeks? And maybe just a little bit of a refresher on at what point things start over.
Mm-hmm. So the new bill that the updated regulations around Families First start on April 1st. and they include 2 weeks of sick time and 12 weeks of leave, and you can take both of them. So it adds up to a total of 14 weeks, and the clock restarts as of April 1st. So even if you had, employees who took it last year or up until this, up through the end of March, then they have a full set of 14 weeks starting as of April 1st.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. A few questions around how we have a few members who are both venues and restaurant operators, or venues that have restaurants. Is there any potential understanding of how those two grant programs work together, whether it's worth waiting for one over the other? And again, maybe some explanation again, how the PPP and the EIDL interplay with those programs.
That is an excellent question, given that neither grant program has been officially launched yet. I don't have advice on sort of which one you should go for first. I would recommend applying for both when it becomes available. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Shuttered Venues grant program now is compatible with the PPP, just that the PPP loan amount will have to be deducted from any grant that is received through the Shuttered Venues program.
Thanks for that clarification. I think we have time for one or two last questions. Any explanation of how you apply for the employee retention credit and who's best to talk to for more resources on that?
Mm-hmm. The employee retention credit is a simple form that's through IRS. It's the 7,200 form, and it's and I think the best, if you have a payroll company, to talk with them, and if you don't, I would say one of the resources that we included at the end in terms of SBA or SCORE, engaging them in a conversation to help think through the form. And again, this is one where I think for businesses who have more employees who have a PPP, it may even be worthwhile seeing if there's a financial advisor who could help with it. Because I will tell you, if you go online, all the all the big guys are figuring out how to maximize, what they should apply for PPP, what they should apply for this and the other ones. So I think this is a place where a small investment might actually be quite beneficial to many of our small businesses.
Thank you. If there's a few been questions of, pardon me, it is a Wednesday. There have been a few questions from sole proprietors coming through the chat. Again, there will be a specific sole proprietor webinar, but if you want to give any updates on how some of these programs work overall for sole proprietors, I know that's a lot of our membership as well as we close out this webinar.
Just again, reiterating the fact that we are working very hard to have Congress provide a retroactive fix for the new loan calculation formula from net profit to gross income, so that those who had already applied for the PPP can access additional relief through this change for sole proprietors. There are a number of partners and allies who are focused on making that retroactive fix. And so hopefully Congress is able to do that. Unfortunately, it seems that the administration cannot make that fix, and so it will require legislative action. But we will be digging more into that as part of our future webinar on sole proprietors.
Excellent. I just want to thank everyone for sending in their questions. I know we didn't get to all of them. There are a lot of nitty-gritty details. And again, we'll be updating our resources at smallbizcovid19.com, including a recording of this webinar will be available there, in addition to the more deep dives that we've mentioned that are coming up. So please be sure to share those with your networks. I know there were a lot of questions, particularly around specific situations with your individual lenders. So we highly recommend, again, the slide with resources connecting to either the Community Navigators programs as it comes up, the SCORE network, and other agencies and organizations that have been given technical assistance money to help with that, particularly as there's been a lot of confusion about, what supersedes what and in what order, depending on whether it's a lender policy or the SBA or what's going on. There's been a lot of people being sent back and forth. And so wherever you can find an advocate to help you through that program, we highly recommend those resources. And with that, I'd like to thank our panelists and speakers, Dominique Sanders, our field director, Cynthia Ward-Wickstrom, our programs director, and Didier Trin, our government affairs director. They have been working tirelessly to read through the thousands of pages of legislation to keep us all up to date. And again, those resources will continue to be updated at smallbizcovid19.com. We appreciate your membership and your activism, and there's more work to do. So thank you all.